together the case studies together at the end. But we'll get right into it. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to get into like case studies that are all of real people, but not here. They're in another country. You can guess which one, so that nobody feels like they're put on the spot. So you don't need to worry about the slides. As long as I can see it, that's all that matters, right? So the general concept of outreach is very, 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 very simple. Okay, is that God outreached us, right? God came down to us at our level. First, He was present with us in the Garden of Eden. Then He dealt with us very externally and internally through prophets, judges, holy people. And then ultimately, in the incarnation, which is God literally becoming human. And sometimes what I tell the servants is, and sometimes parents when they're dealing with their kids, is, like, God became human, so, like, you should try it. Because sometimes we're not human towards one another. And this is one of the main reasons why we have discord sometimes. In Arabic, actually, in the line in Matins and Vespers, when we say, God have mercy upon us, settle your mercy upon us, the English says, visit us with your salvation. But the Arabic is actually closer to the original language, and the word is outreach us with your salvation. It's please come down to our level and bring us up to your salvation. And even in the words of the liturgy, we talk about how God didn't abandon us unto the end, but visited us through His prophets, through other people. We are some of these other people, which we're going to get to. And manifested yourself to us who are sitting in darkness by the manifestation, by the revealing to us of your Son. In addition to this, when God came to us in the flesh, He was very strict and very explicit with us about what He expected from us. He told us that you have to visit people in prison. You need to clothe the people who don't have clothing, to comfort those who are in distress. Even in the Old Testament, there's numerous verses about taking care of widows, orphans, strangers. And He always actually, whenever He would yell at them or rebuke them about dealing with strangers, He would remind them, you were strangers when you were in Egypt, and you were not happy because they didn't treat you well. And so He emphasizes to them that the importance of treating people very well. Because whatever we do is a reflection of His name, since we ourselves bear His name as Christians. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, you're taking on somebody else's name, which is Christ. So if you are going to take on His name, then you better represent Him well, in the same way that we care about who our ambassadors are of our countries. So what is outreach? Very, very clearly, it's reaching out. Okay, like there's no sophisticated dictionary definition, but it's crucial because this is a practical way of showing love to people. Christians talk about love all the time, but if you're not showing it, then you don't really love them. Outreach is something tangible, physical, and memorable. I think almost all of us, if you go back in your mind, can probably remember a person in your life who stood out, and it was probably because they showed you concern or care in some way that was beyond the normal of the rest of society. There's a lot of comments here about youth because I was originally giving this to youth servants, but substitute youth with any human being because everybody needs love, regardless of their age or gender. So with congregants, with humans, it is actually usually more meaningful than a sermon. Or youth meetings or Sunday school. And sadly, and I say sadly because liturgy is supposed to be a remembrance of the incarnation of this outreach, but sadly even more meaningful than liturgy is how important outreach is. Because it's a reminder of God outside of the normal church environment, in an age where, let's face it, most people have a church life and a social life, and they see the two for some reason as distinct. We like to compartmentalize or divide our spiritual selves from our non-spiritual selves, depending on who we are, when this is not what Christ called us to do. It also helps you learn of the people that you serve. And as a Christian, you're a servant. Like, whether you have the official title or not, you're a servant, because every Christian is a servant. It's supposed to be serving every other human being, whether Christian or non-Christian. So it helps you learn about the people you are serving, what the problems are of each generation, which in turn helps you be a better parent, servant, friend, a Christian as a whole, by being real to one another. And these are really impressive transitions. So what is the objective of outreach? Usually I'd open up the floor, but because we're running a little late, I'm not. Like, if you have anything in your mind other than love, then there's something wrong. Okay? Because sometimes people will be like, oh, it's to know their problems, oh, it's to... No. If you have anything in you other than sacrificing yourself for another person, it is not a true outreach. Outreach is only about love. It's not about solving their problems. It's not about thinking that you know something. It's not about condescension. It's not about you thinking you're so holy and thanks to you people are more happy in the world. Like, there should be no ego. It is purely love. If it is not love, people will read right through you, because people aren't stupid. And it will not stand the test of adversity if you don't really have love. So I like to define outreach more by what it is not. It is not, as we said, to try and find out people's problems. Okay, asking about people or going out, you're not like, okay, no, I got to figure out what's wrong with them. Keep in mind, I'm not saying these things won't happen when you outreach. It's just that these are not the objective of outreach. It may happen when you're outreaching that they might tell you something that's bothering them. But your objective should never be to try and get out of them what is their problem. It should only be to show concern. It is not to try and make somebody open up to you. It's not to try and be popular with the youth or the congregation, to get votes to become the next priest, to become the top of the servants. Nothing. It is not to try and be the one who is close to everyone. This is a major danger sometimes, especially for servants. That ego sometimes gets in the way of love, where it becomes, there's a feel-good thing about being the guy or the girl that everybody likes. And it's not about that. It's not about you. And it's not to try and make them love you. Okay? It is purely about the love that you have for God and from God, outpouring onto other people. And that's all it is. So don't confuse possible consequences of outreach with what the objective should be. So any of these points might actually happen, okay? But they are not ever supposed to be your objective. So some biblical lessons. Again, the incarnation, we said, is the prime one. God became human, so you should really give it a try, all of you. We have to do the same by taking on the weaknesses of humanity to show them love as Christians, not condescension. So like on a practical level, not everything is evil. So
what do you mean by not condescension?
Because it's one thing to be like, you know what, because you're weak, okay, I'm going to lift you up. Like, that's you coming off as being above them on this other level. Whereas when you're on a team with somebody, it's not about you condescending. It's like, no, we're a team, he's tired. Let's pull his weight because we are one. It's a completely different mentality. On a practical level, like, 'cause again, this was mostly directed originally at servants. Sometimes parents and older parents will freak out because their kids like listen to music. I'm not saying that all music is okay. There's a lot of messed up stuff now on the radio. Sorry, I will digress for a second because I was really disturbed. Love me like you do. Love me like you do, touch me like you do. I'm going to be explicit. It's a really disturbing song. The whole song is about sex. And on top of it, and I'm going to be, are there kids in here? There are. They compare the Holy Grail, which in case you didn't know is the mythological, possibly, chalice from which Christ gave the blood on the Last Supper, with the male reproductive organ. It's disturbing. Okay, so like I'm not saying, yeah, whatever they listen to is fine. We have to have some discernment. However, like, don't freak out like that your kid likes, I don't know, whatever that group is from England, One Direction, right? I forgot their names. Because, I mean, the parents probably listen to Abdul Halim, right? Like, the younger generation, you listen to, like, Amr Diab and whatever the new dude is, the guy that escaped the army. like our generation, like we had like Our Lady Peas, Pearl Jam, Backstreet Boys, like whatever you had, we were all listening to it. Okay, so we don't need to pretend that we didn't and have a heart attack when somebody is listening to something. So be real, right? So instead, teach the right thing. Okay, is like instead of saying this is a blanket ban, right? That like all secular music is gonna make you become the devil, right? Is like listen to what they're listening to and be like, well, are you okay with this? They're expressing this. Is this something you believe in? Okay, like teach them how to think, because the consequence of this is that you let them feel the love of God, and these cultural age barriers don't exist anymore. Even if you're older and even if you're from a different culture. My priest, you guys met him when he came, like, he was an Egyptian born and raised, and I never had an issue with him. He yelled at my mom for being mad at me for listening to music and defended me, and I was like, score. Because it makes people feel understood, right? Is that you're not just yelling and you're not just angry at them for doing something. The Samaritan woman, Christ with her went out of his way to find her and speak to her on her level in her own zone. He went to her. Okay, Jews didn't go to Samaria. They didn't chill in Samaria. They didn't talk to Samaritans. Okay, this was not the normal place to find a Jew. That's why the disciples take off to get food, right? They don't want to be seen in Samaria. It's going to give them a bad reputation. So the practical lesson from this is that we do need to go out of our comfort zone. And I want you guys, when we're talking about this, to think about this congregation, okay? The number of people that come here on a Sunday, on a Thursday. Like, the whole point of this is that we need to go forward in resurrection, because one thing that I received so much positive feedback with in this church is how happy of an environment people find when they come here, which I really pray that you don't lose. Because it comes down to this, is how do we interact with one another and the community. We do need to sometimes go out of our comfort zones, our cliques, I think you guys call it cliques here, to a land where like there's something foreign or tense, okay? There might be somebody who comes to the meeting that's like awkward to you, okay? It's not who you would usually chill with, it's not who you would normally talk to. Get over yourself. Okay, and talk, because maybe that person today just needs a little bit of love, okay, and that doesn't mean that they're going to cling to you and hold on to you and latch on and you're a prisoner, because you're going to bring to them the love of God. In that situation, it is important that the message is never of condemnation, but one of hope and love. Okay, like Christ, when he sat with the Samaritan woman, like first they had a real conversation. Right, like he didn't start off by being. Like, he didn't start off the conversation with, where's your husband?" and get right into like her sins. Right, he starts off with a conversation. They have a back and forth. In fact, they have a pretty deep conversations that he didn't even have with the disciples yet, which was pretty impressive. And on top of it, she was a woman. Okay, and men didn't talk to him in public. So like everything he did in that scenario was abnormal, but he was making her feel comfortable. And then on top of it, right, knowing her sins, he already knew that she was living a not so great life. He wasn't like, yeah, you are a sinner. She was like, actually, I don't have a husband, and this is my situation. She opened up, right, which we said sometimes happens in outreaching. People do open up. He was not like, oh, well, since that's your situation, I'm going to pray for you to become a better person, and then when you do, you can join. Right? Like, instead, he was like, good for you for being so honest about it. And then he didn't pretend that it was okay. Okay? Like, so he didn't be like, that's all right, no problem, we all commit adultery all the time. Right? Like, which is also sometimes a mistake we make, where we're just like, I don't want them to feel offended, so I'm going to just tell them it's all good. Right? And it's like, no, it's not all good. Okay? But it might not be the right time or the right person to tell them so. But he just said to her, well said, you're right, that's not the case. And then he dropped it. Okay, he didn't go anywhere further with it, and she was already converted. Like, she went off because she was so moved by this experience of love from Christ that she didn't need a sermon on the woes of adultery. Okay, it was enough for her simply to meet Christ. And that changed her life and converted the whole village, which is why I said as a consequence is this verse that I love from Song of Songs, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Draw me and we will run after you. Because Song of Songs is a love story. Nobody in their right mind wants other people to run after their lover, right? Like that's messed up. But when it comes to Christ, okay, we are overfilling with this love that we do want the whole village to come with us, which is exactly, literally what happened with this woman. The two dudes on the way to Emmaus, right? They're bummed, okay? They've had a bad week, so did Christ. And Christ is crucified. They thought he was something and it wasn't. And one of the Lord's first appearances was to people who were simply bummed. There are people in the congregation who are down. Okay? There are people in the world who are down. There are people at work who are down. Things aren't going well for them. They do need care. We don't say, oh, I noticed that they were down. That's too bad. I hope it works out for them. Okay? Christ went out of his way, like, instead of just chilling with the 12, he goes to two random dudes on the way to Emmaus. So sometimes there's stuff that happens in church. Someone dies, church politics, a priest or servant is reprimanded or gets moved, someone gets in trouble, or in a scandal, a person died. All these things are stuff that happen in the church. We know that because the church is still a bunch of human beings, and as human beings, we make mistakes, we fall, we offend people. That's something that we do, we're really good at it. And so these events do hurt people. They do cause confusion or hurt or anguish. And so we need to understand that. So on a practical level, we need to put on our minds the needs of everybody else, not your own. Like, love is self-denial. Okay? It's to put yourself in the shoes of everybody who is around you, regardless of whether they are right or wrong. Even if they're depressed because it's their own fault, it doesn't matter. Try and understand where they are coming from and how an event might make them feel. And go out of the way to talk to them and make sure that they're cool with what's going on, and if not, address it appropriately. If you're able to yourself, great. If you don't, pull in somebody that you know that can, or direct them somewhere where they're going to be able to get what they need. But don't just address it, but hear it, and walk away. Because when you do this, they'll feel your concern for them and that there's honesty. And if there's honesty, they can be open. If they don't feel like it's an honest environment, they're going to be too afraid to come with their problems. They're going to feel like this is a place where we need to act like everything is always okay. And if it's not okay for them, even though you're not doing anything, they're not going to come. They're not going to feel welcome, because they're going to feel intimidated. So we need to outreach those who appear down and think of people around you who might be, and even without asking them, so why are you down, right? Change the environment for them. Like, cheer it up, joke around, right? Like, if you have the ability to go out with them, go out with them. Just be like, yo, let's like grab a Starbucks or something. Like, but do something tangible and real, and you don't have to take them out to talk. It isn't like, so what's on your mind? Why have you been down? Right? There's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I noticed, and I'm like, I just want to get out. Right? Like with my boys back home is like always the image in my mind. We created an environment for one another. We knew somebody was down, we'd play Wii, we'd play games, we'd do whatever, we'd go camping. Like if not, we're like, yo, let's just meet up at the restaurant. Anything, just to allow them a place to have a safe environment. St. Peter felt ridiculously guilty after he denied Christ 3 times. Sometimes we forget that people have messed up and they feel guilty, even though they're still among the group. Peter, unlike Judas, didn't kill himself, okay? He was still with the group. But within the group, he was down because he felt responsible, even partially, for his own role in denying Christ. So our Lord went out of his way to take him apart from the group and comfort him. He pulled him aside knowing that this person feels guilty about this, and to show him that he's still a son. So on a practical level, in our church, there are many people who have messed up, stuff has happened in their lives. And every single one of us, I mean, we're not Christ. Christ didn't mess up. Every one of us has messed up, from the bottom to the top, from the person cleaning the church up to the Pope. There's not a single human being among us who has not messed up royally in his or her life. And if they didn't, God help them, because they will fall, right? Because every single one of us does. So sometimes someone else is that badly, and they'll appear to be normal, and they'll still hang around the 12. Okay, they'll have a Peter who's still in the church, who still comes, but is bearing on their heart something that makes them feel inadequate, or something that makes them feel less of a Christian, or something that makes them feel like if they knew this about me, maybe I wouldn't be so welcome because I've messed up. There's so many things that we're all addicted to, or that we've done, or we've messed up, or where we fell off the wagon. These are the people to reach out to make sure that they actually feel the love of God and His acceptance of them in all states. Every single state, right? When Christ fed the multitudes, He didn't have the disciples walk around with a survey pad of, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Okay, you're allowed to eat.
A lot of the suffering is internal, so how do you pick it up as an adult?
By spending time with people. If you spend time with people, you will learn very quickly how to see their moods, because you've got to know them. Right? Where it's just like he's usually outgoing, but now he's reserved. Usually they're smiley, today it seems forced. Or when there's events, they tend not to come. If there's discussions, they'll go quiet once it's religious, and they'll be louder when it's something that they can talk about. There's so many things, but if we're attentive, that's a great question, being attentive to one another, we will pick up on things. If we do this, if we feel this among each other, like, invite someone you know hasn't been coming for a long time. We all know them. There's the person who was, like, living in sin with somebody. There's the person who's divorced. There's the person who did drugs and was embarrassed to show themselves at church. There's the person who just, like, had this weird streak and they dressed funny and they were goth or they had whatever. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that we've done where we don't want to come back to it. I was even embarrassed at one point to go back to a certain church because I'm just like, like when I left the monastery, I hadn't even done anything wrong, right? Like I left the monastery because I was called to service, but I was afraid of being perceived as a monastic failure, right? So I'm like, I don't want to visit yet, right? And it's not even like I did something wrong. We all have random stuff that we're worried about other people's perception of and how they're going to view us. But if we're Christians, none of that should matter, because Christ never dealt with anybody any differently. In fact, He was usually a whole lot nicer to the sinners, because the ones who were full of themselves got told off. Because if we do this, then the church will have a sense of love and acceptance, not rejection. We all watch those movies like Full House, like where like Stephanie Tanner drives the car through the house and like Danny gives her a hug. And I'm like, man, right? And then the music comes on and everybody awes and stuff. But like, if we're Christians, that shouldn't be abnormal. Well, not that it's okay to drive through houses, but like, it shouldn't be abnormal that there's forgiveness. Where we're like, oh wow, look at that, He was forgiving. That should be our norm. That shouldn't be shocking. It should be a scandal when we are not forgiving and when we are not showing love to one another. Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was an outcast, a sinner, and a traitor. Okay? Because he was a tax collector. And so Zacchaeus was working for the occupiers. Like the Romans occupied Judea, that's how the Jews viewed them. And here he was collecting money for them and screwing them over, which we know he screwed them over because he admitted, right? He was like, no, I robbed them. But he was still, just because he was a sinner, didn't mean he wasn't interested in Christ. In fact, he was more genuine in his interest in Christ, because it says that Zacchaeus wanted to know Christ. It's one of my favorite lines for who he was. He was like, I don't want to know him for the hoopla and all the press and what they're saying. Who is this guy? I want to know, who is he? Who is this very person? He was more legit than the others. Others were coming for the show. He was like, no, I don't care about the show. Who is this guy? I want to know about him, and if he's real, I'll deal with him. Right? And that's exactly what happened. He was like, sure, I'll come over and I'll chill with you. Okay, and he went over and he had a meal. Okay, you can go to Denny's, it's open 24 hours. Go out with somebody and have a meal. Go out with somebody who's sincere, regardless of what their past is, regardless of what you know about them, regardless of whether they're working for the enemy or not. They're, God forbid, a Protestant or a Catholic or a Jehovah's Witness, whatever it is. If somebody is seeking, they're seeking. So open up your heart in the same way that Christ did. It doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere, but it definitely, you owe it to them to show them love. Because if the Spirit of God is in you, your presence and your act of love will make them feel the love of God. And it might stir them to repent and have a spiritual life. In the same way that Christ meeting with Zacchaeus, Christ didn't say, this is what you got to do. I'm going to tell you what you got to do. Zacchaeus offered it. He was like, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to go and give all the money back in multiply what I took from them and start fresh. He didn't even need Christ to tell him, what you did was wrong, can you please do this? Because people, whether you like it or not, already have a conscience. The disciples in the boat. This is an interesting encounter because the disciples are actually freaked out. They're just scared. And God goes out of his way to walk on water, okay, which is not a normal occurrence, to meet them. He could have waited till the next day. He could have taken a boat. He could have waited till the morning. Instead, he comes to them walking on water in the middle of the night, knowing that they have a problem. This is an act of love because it shows them something. He just wanted to be with them. Okay, this was, actually I made a mistake, this was not when they were afraid. When he came afraid, it was, they were freaked out because he was walking on the water. But he was actually just coming to join them. But it's a nice thing to simply spend time with one another. There doesn't need to be a musibah. There doesn't need to be a scandal or a problem to force us to spend time with each other. Okay, don't wait till it's at that point to be when we show love. So don't wait till they're crying out for help. Because sometimes we forget the needs of people who appear to be stable because we're running after the lost sheep. But everybody's our kid, right? Every person is a sheep. So we have to show love at all time, because if we do this, it'll confirm those who are already happy, not just those who need it, and it will also change the culture and environment of the whole church. If the whole church is one where we actually enjoy fellowship one with another, when we come into this hall after liturgy, which is an extension of liturgy, and everybody's simply happy to see one another and spend time and ask about one another, this is what draws people, because they can see that we actually care. So I'm going to quickly, this was going to be a group exercise, is just go through a couple of, wasn't this escaping, cases. We don't have to do all of them. But just to point out to you, these are, again, this was for servants, so they're more about kids. Just to give you a sense sometimes of what we don't recognize. I don't know if you guys can read that.
No.
Okay. You are supervising a kids club and playing sports outside. One of the little kids is walking around and inappropriately touching girls, slapping them and laughing, then running away. You try and reprimand him and he yells, "I hate you, and I hate God." Every single one of these cases is a real case, by the way. So how would you react, or what would you think, given some of the stuff that we talked about?
So how old is the
Yeah, how old is he?
5.
Oh, he's only 5.
Ask them
Ask them.
why they slapped the girl, and why they hate God.
Okay. And he's like, "I just do."
I think I would redirect him at 5 years old. I don't necessarily think I would ask why. I would just say, let's play over here. If you want to hit something, I don't know, to throw this ball instead and give him something active to do.
Okay.
I would question where the parents are, like, where's your mommy, where's your daddy?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd have a conversation.
Right.
I explained to him what he's doing is wrong. Calmly.
And what if he doesn't care?
Tell him it's important to care.
Okay, well, it's a good idea for you to care, Habibi. So in this case, actually, he was a 5-year-old. He was slapping females on their rear. And a couple of the servants actually yelled at him. And they were like making him sit by himself during lunch and all sorts of stuff. So my sister, and I'm bringing her up because she lost her son, like an infant son, went to ask about him, because when you've gone through loss, you become much more compassionate towards other people. And so she went to him and did actually what some of you were saying, and she just like tried to engage him and play with him. And so she was like, "Oh, that's so sad. I'm sad that you hate God, but you know what? Why don't we go play?" Right? She didn't big it up and "Why do you hate him?" and blah 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 blah. And then he voluntarily told her, and he's like, "Actually," he was like, "My dad's dead," and he said it in a way that you're not used to a 5-year-old saying, right? And so then my sister's like, "Oh, that's too bad." I know what it's like to lose somebody you love too, because I lost my baby. And he looked at her and he's just like, yeah, but at least your baby was going to heaven. My dad's not. My dad smoked. So you can already hear all sorts of things that like were put into his head that caused anger, that there's all this kind of stuff, right? And so like she was like, no, God doesn't get mad at you because of this and this. And so they formed a bond, and suddenly behaviors slowly started to change. But the point of these cases is to say that there's so much more behind a person than we see. If we don't show them love, okay, you won't know what is making a person behave in the way that they do. A young woman has grown up in the church and has impeccable attendance. She's very involved in the service before even going through the servants prep program. She disappears for a short period of time, but she's back and attends the normal college meetings. What would you think if you're just a random person in the church? She's busy. Right? How would most of you react? Like, what would most of you do? Would just be like, cool, I'm glad she's back. Right.
How short is short?
3 or 4 months.
That's not short.
She'd show up randomly at liturgy, but they're just not really present.
So she went through a hard time, some kind of crisis or something.
Yeah, she had a suicide attempt. Right? But nobody would have guessed. She was a regular. She's like actively serving, always smiling. Shows up at servants prep when she comes back. She's attending the college meetings. But we have people among us who are going through tough times that might not always show it. Right? This is why, like, the point is to say you need to always be giving love. You don't know who you're interacting with. Like, and nor should we always know all these details. We don't need to all know somebody is going through that, because it might even make people start to treat them differently and cautiously and make them feel like superly like overwhelmed and self-conscious. But if we are always showing love, perhaps this might not even have been a thought. Maybe. Like, there's so many factors obviously that affect it. But these are again, they're real people. I'm going to skip some of them just because of timing. A young man has the Tazbah book, the Psalmody, memorized from front to back. He knows 1 billion hymns, he's early to all the liturgies, and knows the answer to every Sunday school or youth group question. Recently started studying in college, and his attendance has decreased a little bit, but he's still around. What do we think?
Caught up in the wrong group.
Possibly. Starting to doubt. Very good. That's actually what was going on, right? Like, is that sometimes we think that the person who's super religious is solid, right? But when they're put in a new environment, they're challenged, and so they'll keep face. Like, I deal with a lot of youth in our diocese who will, for the sake of their parents, for the sake of everybody, keep face by going, right? So that they appear to be the churchgoer when they couldn't care less, and none of it means anything at all. So again, the importance of being attentive.
So you're saying you just love and that's it?
Be real. In any way that you know how to be real, be real. So like, I'm not saying run out and be like, why aren't you here? But if you notice that somebody wasn't, or if you notice, for example, like this youth, we did notice that his participation wasn't the same, right? Like, this was the wonder kid. So like, why not be like, hey, where have you been at? Like, you used to do blah, 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 blah. Right? Then suddenly says like, oh, he noticed? Oh, he cares? Right? That might be his entrance to saying, yeah, I know. I'm not sure how would I feel about it anymore. Right? That might be all he says. But that's important. Maybe you have a good relationship with him, you can talk to him about it. Maybe someone else does. Who knows? But if we don't go out of our way to pay attention to people, we will never know. And somebody could leave that didn't need to leave. Right? Like, where it's just like, they might have an issue, like in this case it was very simple, like he's back, where like he just needs to express it and get a good answer. So we do need to show love at all times, but love in a practical, that's why I was going through those parables. Love in a real way, whether it's the listening ear, whether it's going out with somebody, whether it's paying attention, whether it's involving somebody, whether it's giving somebody a task or a job, whatever it is, we've got to be on the level of the people. We'll do one more and then we'll close off with a couple of verses. A young man in your classroom, he's a relative of one of the popular servants in the church. He smiles a lot, but is very quiet in class. He does not attend regularly, but you're pretty sure that the servant visits his house a lot. There's a servant who sees him a lot. What might be our thoughts there? Never assume someone's taken care of. Okay? There's no turf in the service if we're all acting in love. You're not trying to own somebody. So like, if you notice something, bring it up. Just don't be like, oh no, but I know he's tight with the buna. No, I know that he's tight with so and so. No, I know blah blah blah. If you noticed it, bring it up. Show them love. Like it makes a difference. I will never forget as a kid that there's two people who I loved with all my heart because they simply knew my name. Because I was only 6 or 7 years old. But every time at church that they saw me, they said hi to me by name. And they were teenagers, which to a 6-7-year-old is like, wow, right? And that was all that mattered, was that they knew my name. So like for years, I was excited as a Sunday activity just to walk out and be like, hey, and like it was Naveen, Naveen and Mike, like till this day. Hi Naveen, hi Mike. They were that special to me because of that small act that said, I care who you are. And in fact, it affected my service. That when I was the cool teenager, is that I wanted, like the reason why I like to play with kids is because they did that to me. So like I would go in our church basement, we didn't have a hall, we had a basement, go out and I would want to sit with the kids, right? Because I was like, it's important for them to know that they matter as much as I did to somebody else. Whatever we receive, we have to give. So as St. Paul says, is that even though I'm not bound to be anything, I will make myself the servant of everybody. Okay, so that I can gain more for Christ. To the Jews, I become a Jew. To the lawless, I will become lawless, but not in behavior. And that I might gain everybody. To the weak, I became as weak. This is one of the most beautiful chapters, I think, in all of St. Paul's epistles. Not bad, huh? St. James, if a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of them, I love this verse, one of you says to them, go in peace, be warm and filled, and you don't give them anything, what did you profit them? Right? By just saying, well, I hope that you feel better, right? I hope it works out for you. That's a nice hope. We all have nice hopes. Okay, so like do something. Okay, if somebody has an issue and you are able to do something, do it. It's supposed to hurt. And again, the verse we talked about earlier about Christ saying that if you don't do these acts of kindness to one another, his answer to you on the day of judgment is, I don't know you. Even if you talk the talk, even it says, even if you do miracles in my name, cast out devils, do all of these things, he can still say to you, I don't know you, because you did nothing with your faith. You need to comfort those who are mourning. You need to visit those who are in prison. You need to clothe the naked. Go and preach to everybody. I'm going to skip a bunch of things. So, to wrap up, outreach is mandatory for all Christians, especially servants, but for all Christians. It's how we preach the gospel. It is a requisite for our salvation, a means of humility, and a real expression of faith. Common excuses. We won't go through all of it. I'm too busy. The answer is give from your need. They don't like me. It's not about you. I don't have that style. Let them decide who they're going to connect with. You just do your part. You don't have to worry about whether they end up coming to you or not. You simply do what you're able to do. I don't know how. God will tell you. Too old, love is ageless. Too young, love is ageless. I don't trust myself. Good. It's Abuna's job. I go back 2 slides. Methods of outreach: call, text, chat. You guys are all over social media, so there's no excuse. Visit Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, eating out, going for walks, church basements, church halls, church dinners. Drives to events are one of the best ways to connect with people. Calendar events. If somebody tells you an event in your life and you've got a crappy memory, write it down. Ask them about it. Right? There's somebody in this congregation that has an exam today at 8:30. Right? If you know that, you send a text. How did it go? Right? Like making them know that they do. Sleepover is something that we can look at having for youth later on. Inviting them to your own home to spend quality time with you. This is anybody, not just kids. Attending people's needs. Tutoring is a service that we used to do in our church that was great. If there's an activity and only a few show up, do it anyway. Show them that it is important to them that even they attended. Don't be like, well, there's only 2. Those 2 are important. Go out with them. Make yourself approachable. Don't walk around miserable at church. Smile, be happy, provide contact information of yourself to anybody you meet. Make comments to people that make them happy. Don't take strong vocal stances that alienate people. Know their names like Naveen and Mike. Get to know them, which means give them time. Give people time. Personality and culture. I'm going to skip some of these. Just things to be careful of. Don't get full of yourself. Don't evaluate your service. Just love people. And don't judge goodness. Don't judge badness. Like, don't judge anything. Never, ever, 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 ever speak to somebody about a problem without praying. Never. You are not giving them from yourself. So if there's ever a situation where somebody is asking you for advice or to talk, pray, even if it's rapid. Whenever I am giving somebody advice, whenever somebody calls me, even in confessions, I am silently, even while they're talking in my head, praying. I do this myself. I'm like, Lord, this is your child, not mine. Lord, give them the word that they need. Lord, override me. It is not about me. What do you see for this person? Like, always, 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 always pray. Do not ever give credit to yourself instead of God, where sometimes like, oh, I can talk to them about that, they like me. No. If that's in your mind, even if it's true, you have a problem. Don't ever join in something wrong with the pretense of showing love. I had the Borat movie as an example. I didn't know how bad it was, but there was a bunch of my boys back home when they were in high school, skipped liturgy in the morning, then they wanted me to chill with them in the afternoon. I was like, no, sorry. Like, I was like, especially because they're at a point where they were doing the church thing. I'm like, I'm not going to be okay with, like, encouraging that church didn't matter, and that going to the movies with you is okay. So we don't do something wrong to have a good consequence, because that's dishonest. Don't give up on somebody ever, and never judge. Never, ever, 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 ever judge. If you judge, you're going to fall so darn hard it's not even funny. And you'll be judged yourself. So don't ever judge. Also be careful not to replace somebody's father confession with yourself. It's a common thing where we take over somebody's mind and we like to build them up. Nobody should be doing that, not even the priest. Don't lose your spiritual life while pretending to save the world. Because there's a great Egyptian proverb that I love: what you lack, you can't give. If you have no spiritual life, you can't teach somebody one. It's very simple. Don't judge, don't compare with other servants, don't have an agenda, don't gossip, not with the people you serve, not with other people in the church, ever. Never betray confidentiality, never assume someone else is caring for something. Be everything to all men. What we need to do is point at Christ, okay, always. It's always about Christ, it's never about us. Identify red flags, deal with accordingly. Teach people how to approach the priest and benefit from confession. I used to be kind of a bridge for the youth, where I would be like, well, this is something maybe you should talk to Abuna about. And if I was worried about Abuna's response, I'd go to Abuna. Like, I was like, Abuna, there's a youth coming to you. He was really worried that you were going to flip out. Like, to kind of hint, like, so you better not flip out. Not that he, like, ever did that, but it was like, there was a way of doing it, being like, he's worried about this encounter. So, like, can you make sure that you are, without giving away anything that the person said. Show them the gospel by deed more than word. By word when necessary, but by deed more than word. Follow the cues of the person you're loving, because our Lord didn't force anyone to do anything that overrides their free will. Everybody came freely. connect people to the experts. Some just in the tip we're gonna leave. It's 9, so I'm just gonna end here. There's some important stuff that maybe on another occasion, if we get one, we can do it. As every man has received the gift, because every one of us has a gift, at least one, no matter who you are. Even so, serve the same, like using your gift, to each other, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Because what he's saying is, this gift isn't yours. You have no right to it. It was a gift. That's what a grace is. A grace is a gift. So you're just a steward of a gift. There's no need for ego. Whatever gift you have, use it to serve other people. If any man speak, let him speak as though the prophets of God. If a man serves, let him do it as of the ability which God gives. Whatever ability you have, just use it, that in all things God may be glorified through Christ, to whom praise and dominion be forever and ever. Amen. I like this quote from Blessed Augustine. God has granted to each of us the special graces needed for the upbuilding of his church, so that we will do what he has indicated should be done, not only without complaint, but with joy. And glory be to God forever. Amen. I know it's late, guys, so if there are any questions, we can take a couple. If not, we can wrap up. Did anyone have any comments or questions or... Okay. All right. God willing, this Sunday, what's the date on Sunday? Okay, this Sunday, I believe, is Abuna Cyril. No, it's Abuna Mina, I think. God willing. Ashaya will be covered, even though I'll be gone. Abuna Cyril is working really, really hard to make sure that Saturday nights are covered until we figure everything out. And I would like just to thank everybody again for the immense love you guys have shown me. And God willing, we won't be strangers to one another. Outreach me. All right. And now the love of God the Father, the grace of His only God Son, the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Go in peace. The peace of the Lord be with you all. Amen.